Ready to rock? Hey everyone, Jason House here. Another episode of On the House podcast. I got one of my good friends, one of the top coaches in MMA, coach of the year multiple times through, Eric Nicksick.
Man, thanks for having me on, Jay. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too. One thing, Eric, Coach, I really wanted to start off like talking about was, I know you had you had your own athletic career, like
Sure.
what that transition was like from going from athlete to coach, and kind of what that's like, because I think what we're seeing now is a lot of, at least for me on my end with the agency, maybe my first generation guys are trying to segue into coaching. I'm just kind of curious what that was like for you, kind of, with your football background and everything, kind of going, okay, my role now is going to be coach.
Sure.
And kind of win that.
It was an interesting path for me because I come from a long line of coaches.
Yeah.
My dad obviously was our defensive coordinator, but I grew up in a football home. Both of my uncles, and then my other uncle was the pitching coach for the Atlanta Braves. So I just like having coaches everywhere I turned. And then you think about the extension uncles, right? The ones that aren't really your uncles, but you know, Uncle Greg and Uncle Roger and this guy, whatever. And they were all high level coaches themselves, whether it was baseball, basketball, and everything else. So I felt like to some degree coaching was always going to be my background, but obviously I thought it was going to be football. Okay. And then when football was over for me, I started to really miss the camaraderie. It was, of course you miss the game, of course you miss playing, but it was the people. It was the experiences, I think, that you shared with your teammates and everything else that you missed the most. And that's what I felt like I was searching for when I got to Xtreme Couture. And when I got to Xtreme Couture, it was really nothing more than just wanting to be around like-minded individuals or people that were going to push me into a better place than I was in my life. The coaching element kind of fell in my lap just through Randy. So I was there for about a year and a half. And then somebody didn't show up for grappling practice. That's all I was really doing when I was there, was just grappling with like Jay and Mike and the team and class and everything else. And then Randy's like, hey, we're in a pinch. Can you take over this Friday class for us? I was like, sure, yeah, I'll start running. And we didn't have gi back then. It was everything was all no gi. Yeah. And then so I was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to. And that one Friday class at 11 was like my baby. I was calling everybody and making sure guys were coming, and I was packing the class. And then
this was a general pop class, or this was
both. So it was general pop, but we did so remember we had pro practice back then on 4:30, I think the time it was, maybe even 5. So my class is at 11. So guys were coming in and doing a 2-a-days. So a lot of times for me, I run a quick or simple technique, or if Powell was in there, or then what happened was Vinny started coming in. I was like, dude, I'm not going to coach Vinny anything, right? But Vinny would come in and help coach some stuff. And then, Neil Melanson came on board and everything else. But that class was a meeting of the minds in a lot of ways. And we would come in and get our roles in on a Friday because we didn't have another practice later on that day. So that's where it kind of turned into, for me, it started to snowball. That class turned into something really big. And then Randy is like, hey, why don't you take the Wednesday class over too? So then I had Wednesday and Friday. So then it just started to snowball and snowball. And then those classes, I started working with more and more up and coming fighters, like Gil Gordado, for example. Oh, yeah. Like Gil and Jimmy Jones.
So what year is this then?
Man, it's got to be 08, 09, around there. So that's when you and I first met, remember? Going to the Bama cards. Yep. So I had that the small group of guys that were just up and coming amateur fighters that were turning pros. Mm-hmm. And then I the first fight I ever cornered was Dennis Davis. That was here at the Riviera. So Dennis started trusting me more. And it wasn't for me, Jay, I wasn't trying to get into coaching. It just was hey, can you be here for me for this?
And you're probably enjoying the camaraderie. You're probably just having, it's just like you've been doing it all your life, right?
100%.
Going to practice every day, helping your teammates out.
Exactly. And it was oh, dude, it's a road trip and it's this and it's this. And I never really thought of it oh, this is going to be my career. The whole time I'm going to school to be a firefighter. The whole time. Literally, so my days were just jam-packed. I would train in the morning. I'd go to school in the afternoon, and I would work at the bar at night. I would only work 4-hour shifts at the pub. But then the next day, I'd just do it all over again. So for me, staying busy, living in Las Vegas, as you know, staying busy is the most important thing. Yeah. Keeps you out of the nightlife, keeps your head straight and everything else. So I really fell in love with my schedule and my system. And then, we had our first child. So McKenna's 17. So I was bringing McKenna to the gym in a carrier train with Dennis. I'd go home and then, shower up, go to school, swap the kid with Annie. So for me, it was like, okay, this is going to be my career path, is going to be the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got hired by City of Las Vegas, City of North Las Vegas, and county. I got hired by all 3 departments.
Oh, so you actually...
Yeah.
I did not know this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was going to be like, I was.
So this is the time I'm seeing you at Bama. You were
Yeah. So I got hired by those 2 departments. They did a co-test. So City of Las Vegas and City of North Las Vegas did a combined test. Mm-hmm. Then what happened was I scored a 98. So I was able to pick between the 2 different departments. I got hired by both. So you go all the way through all your background and everything else. Well, what happened was I got in a huge fight in college, and it got me kicked out of Reno. And that fight was like 10 years after the fact I got hired. And so I called my lawyer down there up in Reno, and I was like, hey, do I even have to put this on my background? Like, it's sealed and expunged. Like, if you dug it up, like, no one's going to say anything. Yeah. He's like, put it down on your background because this is an FBI background check. It's for the fire. You don't want to get caught in a lie, right? And I talked to my hiring chief, and he's like, I don't even think you have to put it, but I would put it. Like, your lawyer's probably right. Just put it down. Dude, it ended up biting me in the ass. So what happened was, because of that fight, human resources couldn't hire me because it was a battery, and it got dropped to like disturbing the peace.
Yeah.
That's all it was. But it was what I was arrested for was like the concern. Mm-hmm. So took me through backgrounds, and then they're like, hey man, you're literally number 2 on the list out of 6,000 people. Yeah, dude, it was heartbreaking. So I had a couple choices. Do I want to go to paramedic route? And so I started going to paramedic school and doing everything else. And then all of a sudden, man, Randy asked me, he's like, out of nowhere, he's like, hey, would you be interested in taking over the gym? Like, as the gym manager. The gym manager at the time, ironically, just got hired to be a police officer in Oregon. So he's leaving in a couple months, and we want to groom you, send you over and take his spot. And I was like, man, I'm going for it. This is kind of what I feel like I want to be a part of. And I, as much as I wanted to be a firefighter, I was kind of in the same realm. Yeah. A bunch of, meat eaters and people that wanted to get after it. And, thankfully, I still have a little regret that I didn't see through my goal in getting on the fire department. But all in all, I think, God was looking out for me and put me in the best situation possible.
Wow. Talk about timing. That's crazy.
Crazy, right?
It's interesting because I started doing MMA because I missed baseball when I finished playing in college.
Exactly.
So that was kind of my segue.
Where did you play ball at? I remember you told me.
University of La Verne out there in Southern California.
Okay, yeah,
and
yeah.
It's crazy because the DAs had a hiring freeze, which led me to just go into management. Which
right.
got, like, it's great. The parallels there are wild. Like,
but it's funny. Like when these things happen at the time,
yeah,
it feels like such a bad thing. Right? You're like, oh my God. And then like I was talking to Eddie a couple weeks ago about this whole stuff that went on. And he's like, is it a good thing or a bad thing? You never know. Right now it feels like a bad thing, but maybe it's something forcing you in a different position, God, faith, the universe, whatever. And then now look at it, how it turned out for both of us,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so you start gym managing. Like when is it kind of the coach role then really? You're teaching those couple classes, right?
Sure.
You're doing Wednesday, Friday, you're the gym manager. At what point do you start realizing like, okay, maybe I am a coach?
More and more guys just started trusting me, I think, and putting me in like small role positions. But Dennis and I were always been very close. So really, like, I'm not in this position without Dennis. Like, Dennis trusted me at a time when really nobody should have trusted me. Not even Dennis, but he just trusted in me. And then it was Ray Sefo. Ray gave me a lot of opportunities, trusted in me, which led to Brad Tavares and Martin Kampman and those guys. So like the first UFC I ever got a corner was Martin Kampman versus Carlos Condit.
Wow, that's a big one.
Exactly. So, and then by putting me in that role, more and more guys started to see, okay, Kampman trusts Eric. So Brad does as well. And so does Ray. And then that's kind of when it started to snowball for me more and more. And then that's when really for me, where my game started to change because I was with Ray so much. I wanted to learn how to hold pads, right? So Ray, being just the great teammate that he is and big brother, he's like, hey, I want you to show up every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. You're going to hold pads for me for 30 minutes every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm like, oh, really? Like, okay, cool. And that was that. I would just start holding pads for one of the best strikers to ever do it in the game. So if I can learn to hold pads for Ray, I can learn to hold pads for anybody. And it was really like Ray, like you're saying earlier, like kind of all these little breaks that happen in our lives. Ray is another one of those guys that I look at where, man, I'm not in this position without Ray Sefo, for him believing in me and giving me that opportunity.
And that's crazy too, because especially, even from say 08 to 09 to now, the training protocols and methodologies have obviously evolved. And
sure.
I think they will continue to in our sport, right?
Yeah.
It's such a young game. It's not like maybe football, got years and years of, coaches and,
right.
and
Evolution. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And that's the cool part about Ray is like, he's so open-minded. Like, Ray as a striker himself was very creative, like with his switch hook versus Jerome LeBanner, and it was doing things that were like, oh wow, like I've never seen that before. And Ray has a particular style. Ray's so good. Like Ray will say like, that'll never work. And I'm like, never work on you, maybe.
Yeah.
like a lot of this shit won't work on anybody but, or everybody but you. But he was so open-minded when it came to like the evolution of the striking game, right? Like I remember Ray, there was a little resistance with Ray when guys were switching stances. And then as Ray started to see the game evolve and see the way that guys were able to do it and do it fluid, Ray's like, okay, that's good, do it, but make sure your defense is just as sound as it is on the other side if you're switching your stances, So having him as a resource, man, was just an unbelievable blessing.
And what was your like film study like back in the early days?
Oh, bro, tons. Yeah. Tons. And that's all I knew, right? Like, okay, I wasn't a pro fighter. How do I adapt and make up that ground, right, if you will? And it was just constant studying. And it was all we had back then was like VHS tapes, and then it was the DVDs, so you just go and then like what I would do, kind of the same way we used to do in football. So if you were breaking down a team, I'd break down a fighter. So I would like, okay, I'm going to grab all the tape I can on Mayhem Miller, or I'll grab all the tape I can on BJ Penn or GSP or whatever. And then back then, of course, Randy. And then start to just try to really learn the essence. And then now when you had Randy as a resource, then I was able to speak to him, hey, what were you thinking in this time, or what was your ideology in this game plan? And then he can break it down to a detail that like, oh, I never thought of that, right? So like Randy, I remember the first time talking to Randy, he's like, hey, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, all these things are its own art. But the art that gets overlooked the most is cage control. He's like, how do you cut the cage off? How do you utilize the cage as its own entity, if you will? And I'm like, oh shit, I never thought of that. Like, so everything that Randy ever taught us as a team was always a detail that was severely overlooked, I think, by just the layman's.
That makes a lot of sense. I remember like the first coach I really worked with was Aljamain, and Aljamain would be watching film. I remember like when the iPads first came out, he'd be there all day long watching it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, so I always just wondered because like, for example, football, right? Sure. Like the defense is only really watching the offense. You kind of have sections of the game that you're watching, right? 100%. If you're breaking it down. But like, I just feel like our sport is so hard for like a head coach like you, because you're watching multiple disciplines go at like a good speed. Like Eddie Chaw told me once, like, Jason, if you're struggling, watch it at half speed. So I've been trying to do that lately when I watch film and just try to keep learning and stuff. But I always like watching film in our sport, such a interesting thing. And I've always respected you because I hear when you talk to our clients, like, man, he must have watched a lot of hours because he has specific things about this. I mean, you had it. I mean, just when like Strickland fought Izzy, like I felt like you were a step ahead that whole fight. And those calls and those cadences, and it was like you knew what was coming. And that's just a lot. I think it's a lot of work that people don't realize going into
the fight. Yeah.
Yes, to watch
it's so much fun for me though, right? Like that was me growing up. I was growing up sitting next to my dad, and how did I get time with my dad during football season? Watch film with my pop. So my dad would be sitting there with his big yellow pad of paper, charting plays, and we'd be breaking down fucking Bonanza, and he'd be like, hey, your job is to watch every time the ball's in the right hash what the guard does. Okay, cool. So the guard steps left, the guard does this, and I'm just charting plays for my dad. And it might have been him giving me the nothing, right? At the time, it felt like the biggest job in the world, but it taught me how to like break down film. So now what I'll do is like a lot of times is I'll watch a fight, right? And we're breaking down the film. I'll watch our fighter, for example. Then I'll watch, our opponent, and then how do we combine the game plan? What are they going to try to look for the holes in our game, and vice versa? Or just watch.
So you watch your guys. I always wonder that too. Are you 100%. Watching your guy? Like, how would I beat?
Exactly.
Like
game plan against yourself. Yes. Game plan against yourself. 100%. And then not only that, like win, lose, or draw, game plan against yourself. Like, so for example, Edmund just fought. We're going to sit down with Ed and we're going to go over, and it's not a lot of tape, but again, it's like you want to get into the off season with some things to work on and build on. Hey, what do you feel like we need to work on? And maybe it's not the last fight. Maybe it's the fight versus Mershart. And we go back and watch that. Hey, where can we game plan? Where do you think the next opponents are going to look to try to get after us? And now when we're in the off season, those are the holes we want to try to fill.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like sometimes we all go hang out with, our clients and your fighters after you win. And you talk about what worked, like, oh, that call or this setup or this trap, this worked. But man, it's so smart. Like, okay, that's great. But like, let's go back and still find the holes. Just keep finding where to plug them and keep,
How are you getting better? How are you evolving?
Yeah.
100%. It was interesting. Like that was something, like ironically enough, when Dan fought Diego, we looked at something where it's like, okay, Diego's on a crash course and so are we, right? Like we're fighting on 4 hours notice.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of tape study. But one of the things that we worked on outside of camp a bunch just to get Dan better was like the same side head kick. So in the second round, Dan slipped a southpaw and I yell like same side and Diego fucking just misses it, takes it off his forehead and then still takes Dan down. I was like, God damn, he just ate a shin bone across his face and still took Dan down. So I was like, oh man, I remember like getting in the corner and I was like, sorry man, that was the bad read. And Dan's like, no, it landed.
Yeah.
Diego just ate it off his face. I was like, God damn it.
It was so funny because I was sitting next to John from Wrist Farm, a good friend of mine. He's like, and he was saying like, I was nervous. To me, the Dan Ige fight was the most nervous one just because one, Dan's dangerous, but a Dan that's that free flowing in the cage, I think is even more scary to me. He's like, oh, it's going pretty good. And right when he said that is when the kick, I'm just thinking like, I can't watch this. I'm too nervous. Like we really don't have enough film to watch.
Yeah, 100%.
Everything was just going 100 miles an hour. But I remember thinking like, damn, like they're already catching on to certain things. It was just like,
no, dude, that was just something that like we had worked on in the off season. And I was like, okay, they don't know, like we haven't shown it. What have we not shown on tape that like Diego's gonna be like, oh shit, like I didn't think Dan's gonna even throw a head kick that high, so it landed, but it didn't land, too bad Diego's got a fucking coconut for a head, man. Yeah. But what a fun fight that was, bro.
And that brings up a good point too, because I feel like sometimes like if, I don't know, say like Peyton Talbot, he's like steamrolling guys, right? Or maybe like they haven't fought in a while. You don't know what you're gonna get. Like for example, like Diego's fighting Volk. Like in my head, I'm like, well, he hasn't fought in year and some change.
Right.
Like you could get a whole different look if a guy's evolving in that year.
There you go, 100%.
I mean, I've seen a lot of fighters whether they get cut and come back or they take a break. They evolve. They're not the same person. So it's always interesting to me. And
like to your point, like think about this too. Like let's use Francis as an example. He was knocking people out.
Yes.
So we didn't have to show any of the growth or maturation.
So you don't know what he has there.
Exactly. So we started wrestling and working on our wrestling back in the JDS camp, right? And then Cain Velasquez camp back then. But he didn't have to show any of it live in a fight. So by the time he got to Stipe, he had 2.5 years of in the room wrestling training, and then when he fought Stipe, I was like, oh my God, look, he can wrestle. Well, dude, that dude was putting in work with the whole time. So until he had to show it, that's when it mattered. And then the Cyril Gahn fight, we're like, oh, this guy's an offensive wrestler now. Yeah, the dude's been working on it for 3 years now.
He's had it in the back pocket.
He's had it in the back pocket, but just never had to show it.
I feel like some people forget that about Ilya. But he actually came in as a grappler. I think Sean even told me like he thought he signed a grappler at the time. But I feel like everyone's fallen in love with his hands, but I always tell people, man, his grappling is
sick. Yeah.
Is really good. Like his head and arm series of stuff he runs, I'm like, man.
Yeah. I mean, to do what he did with Ryan Hall, and then to Bryce Mitchell, the way that he took Bryce Mitchell out, the guy's a problem.
Yeah. That's good to know. I'm always trying to understand the film study. To me, I think it's such an important thing, especially in managing now, because there's fights every weekend, right? Yeah. There's so many fights, and you and I are at the Apex almost every Saturday, but you still you're not watching a fight under that lens, if that makes sense.
Right.
You're watching it, just okay. You're getting the gist of it, but to actually sit down and go, is this a good fight for your client or athlete? I think it's such a different aspect when you're looking at it.
It's every night. It's just kind of like my go to bed reading a book. I go to bed and I watch a little tape, and whether it's an opponent or sometimes it's just a study session. I have Dynamic Striking. I did a video with them. So they gave me a bunch of catalogs, or you can just log in and just get anything you want. So now I'm watching Matt Brown's elbow series or, Khabib's series and stuff like that, just to pick up any little details we can, because man, there's so much information now at our fingertips. Back in the day, it was buy a DVD, and you had to buy Drysdale's DVD series and whatever else. Now we got it all.
My friend gave me one of those hard drives, but it had Duke Rufus striking, all these things. But back then, it was this is crazy, because it was with that DVD. It was when they first came out, there was a big thing, to lug them around. But now it's a lot easier. But at the time, you're like, oh man, this is great. I get to learn from this. And and pick it up. But yeah, that's always something I'm always trying to understand, because I just feel like there's so many new fighters, there's so many new skill sets.
Sure.
Even in coaching, like you said, you're picking up new stuff and you're kind of molding a game that's ever changing. I feel like with coaching, it's got to be hard for you guys. Like what was working may not work, and I don't know, new things pop up all the time. I feel especially against like wall work, to me is like it just its own like. I get lost in it sometimes, you know, like I just ran through this with Trey Ogden the other day. He was like, gave me this whole like series rundown of how he breaks it down. You're like, man, there's just so much.
100%. I mean, and he's an old Krause guy, you know what I mean?
And Krause's tape was one of my favorites to watch. It was on, I think the same series that you have it on. And man, it's just amazing.
Krause gave me that video a long time ago, and it was just like every route breakdown you could possibly. It was him and Grant, remember? And it was like those two had this. You know, and he was ahead of his time when it came to to that stuff and his ideologies. So it's like there's so much information out there now for guys. If you're not paying attention, you're not learning, that's on you. You're just not taking the time to do it.
No, I think you're 100% true. I think like wall work, and then you said cage control has been a big thing of mine, because what I'm noticing is that on the regional scene, a lot of the guys fight in smaller cages. And then I've noticed that some of them have struggled when they make their UFC debut. Because even if they get on a Contenders, that's still a smaller-esque cage. But even some struggle without even that size getting bigger. But like, you know, some of these regional-sized cages are very small.
100%.
So when you get in there, it doesn't seem like much, but they're having a hard time corral or finding their positioning in the cage. And it's just something
I always wonder too, like some of those gyms, do they even have cages in their gyms, right? Like I'll ask guys, like, did you come from anywhere that had a cage? Oh, we didn't have cages in our gym where we came from. You know, or guys aren't getting the cage time. So like you have like, oh, the whatever guy is in the cage for his fight, and these other guys are on the mats. So like even like Mateus and our young guys, our Myron, it's like, hey, schedule your sparring to be early, because I want you in the cage and I want you guys to we'll make it work. But cage time is huge.
I don't want to give the fighters a fight coming up, but you're making me feel better about this. But they generally train like in just like a, you know, like a 4-wall padded thing, and part of the game plan is corralling. It's like, man, you need to see the sides of the cage. You need to have that
choke points.
You need to have that feel when you're sparring. That you need to be thinking about that. It's different when you're just sparring like an open mat, right? Like you just feel like you have an endless amount of time or space, you know, to work within. Where the cage,
and guys are running, and guys are, you know, running around the mats. You see it all the time. That's exactly what we worked on today with Brian Battle. Was like that, and I was like, hey man, we're gonna funnel guys into these choke points and use your length, use your abilities to get these guys into these traps. And Battle's like, fuck, I've never even like heard this. Like I don't even know the concepts, right? Well, do you have a cage usually where you're at? Nope. You know what I mean? Or maybe he does, or maybe they don't utilize it to that extent. Yeah. Right. But to me, it is like, okay, that's the next evolution for you. Like you're already really fucking good. So how can we add to your
scary,
game?
I think he has an amazing record in the UFC, and if that's
exactly.
We got that kind of room to grow. It's scary how 100%, good we can be. You know,
100%.
Yeah, I always just am enamored by it. Just those little details that we don't really see. It's like that's like the things we don't see that are happening in the fight sometimes. You know, and I just want to keep growing and evolving, because I don't know, you can't avoid every risk in a fight, but I really admire the level of detail you put going into a fight, and that's, for me, I think that's where the peace comes from. Is like, we do our due diligence with the coaches and our athletes, then we won't have a bad night. Whatever happens, at least we know that we watched it. We watched every film. We brought in every certain type of look, or like you said, sparring in a cage, as opposed to, we did every little detail that we could do to be better, you know.
100%.
And then on that night, you know, you never know.
Yeah, that's the coin flip.
You know, unless you got someone like GSP who like kind of evolves every time you see him, like a little bit different. You're like, oh damn, it's hard. We got to catch up to this guy. He keeps
trying to beat your own craft.
Yeah. And coming from that too, like, so I feel like in Las Vegas, it's a little different because we have so many guys like Battle, right? All these guys are coming in. Is that difficult for you in coaching guys as opposed to, say, like traditional football, right? You have guys 4 or 5 years on one squad, right? If they redshirt, whatever. Yeah. And now it's like you have guys that maybe have their game molded from one area, or they're coming in. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys are coming to you either, you know, some early in their career, some babies like they're, you know, and some mid-career, and kind of adapting to how that works.
Yeah, I think it's a blessing in disguise in a lot of ways, because of like what you alluded to earlier is, you know, like I get to work with like Bilal Muhammad, right? Yeah. Bilal comes into town, we get some work in, and it's just, hey, what are you working on? Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. And then I get to learn, and then we get to kind of have an exchange of knowledge. But yeah, we're in such a transient city. And I've never really cared. It never bothered me when guys cross-trained. I always thought it was cool, right? I don't come from a traditional martial arts background where it's like, oh, you either train here or you don't, right? So, and that's really stems from Randy, because Randy used to just let anybody in. He didn't care. If you were cool, he didn't give a shit, you know? And so that was always been my mentality when it came to it. And I always feel like you can gain so much value about allowing people to come in the gym, especially guys like Ankalaev, you know, and you get like, you know, Piotr Jan would come in back, you know, and I started learning more about the switch steps because of Piotr Jan. But if you don't allow those guys into the gym, you don't learn as much. Now, can you eventually fight these guys and that come down the line? Sure. But I just don't feel like there's a lot of secrets in the fight game unless it's an injury, right?
Yeah.
So allowing coaches and allowing other people to come into the gym, as long as they fit your ideologies and your standards, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I really respect that about your gym. And going back to what you said about injuries, I feel like your gym's done a great job. Like, there's a great culture there where everyone's been super respectful, and you know, there hasn't been that like, you know.
And I might be wrong. Like, maybe it's not the right thing to do. It's just something like, I don't want to waste time and energy worrying about like, oh, so and so's in here today. All right, well, if you know, I remember Captain Eric was in one time with somebody.
Yeah.
And it was at a point where Joe might fight Cejudo again. And I was like, he's the only guy I've ever like, hey man, can't have you in today because of blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh yeah, no problem. Cool.
Yeah.
I completely understand. But usually it's like, I don't really give a shit. Just come in and train.
No, I think that's so cool. Like you said, it's like a melting pot of stuff, of talent and stuff. And it's funny you bring up Randy, because I just listened to, I think it was Bears podcast.
Yeah.
I think it was Razor Rob and Rampage were talking about how Randy would come into SoCal and like train, and like I guess he was even at Tito's gym, and you know, they end up, you know, they fought each other at one point. But I think that's how a lot of the in those days, how a lot of the guys learned. They came and they were just picking up
totally cross training,
new stuff all the time, you know.
Yeah, Randy was here. You know, he was with like John Lewis and those guys when John Lewis had JSEC, and then he would go out to Cali, he would go to Southern California. He was back up in Oregon and bouncing around. And I think that's kind of when they decided to make Team Quest. And then when Quest dissolved, he was training out of the Ultimate Fighter gym, and then he's like, all right, it's time to get my own spot. You know, and that's right before he fought Tim Sylvia. And that's actually when I met him. That's when I got to the gym.
That time. Yeah, I love that too, because I remember like when I first started managing guys and started getting guys in the UFC, you know, the training rooms in the hotels during the fight weeks, that was kind of like you'd meet people and you learn new things. Like I remember like one time like Damian Maia was on the mats, and like I was like in awe, right?
Yeah.
He was showing some half guard stuff and you're some deep half, and you're like, oh man, like this is amazing.
Yeah.
And everyone would get there. So that's how I kind of look at Xtreme Couture now. Like, you know, sometimes I pop in to watch the guys spar, and you see all the guys like, dude, this is great.
Yeah,
there's so many different looks and different faces, you know. I just feel like from a training point, you'll find what you're looking for. Like in battle, like last night we were here with Ryder, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm giving, you know, Denny rounds for this, and I'm giving, you know, Camilla rounds. I'm like, oh, that's cool, because he is the tall look.
Sure.
Like, you know, and it's cool just to see each other, them help each other, right? And then you know, if battle needs it down the line, you know, they'll kick it back to him.
That's a great point, because when I got to Xtreme, that's the one thing I felt like we lacked as a team, was it felt like it was kind of every man for themselves back then, right? Like, all right, Pyle would get his group
This is
of
like
guys.
like 2006, 7, 8.
Yeah, the heydays, you know? And like Pyle would have his group, and then, you know, he'd beat up on a bunch of these guys, and then he would win his fight, and then you wouldn't see Mike. You know, Mike would kind of go, he would he'd go out fishing and doing his thing. And he'll come back in and train, but it felt very much like a boxing style camp without paying the sparring partners. You know, it's like, oh, you just happen to be here. This guy's going to be my body, you know? And then over time, for me, it started to be more about the culture. It's like, hey, if you're here to help, if this guy's here to help you, right? Take a week or two off. I get it. Get done with your fight, but then you got to come back and help these guys get ready as well for their fights. And the better they get, the better you're going to get in return. So we got to make this more of a team. I know it's an individual sport once the cage door closes, but we're only as good as the guys we surround ourselves with. You know, so let's try to, you know, change that culture a little bit more. And that's a lot when like Robert came, like Follis came. It became a lot of that, like, you know, taking care of one another mentality.
What was that like? Maybe like 12, 13, 14?
Yeah, I think Follis came on about 2014, I bet.
I think, in that ballpark.
2014.
Yeah, and that's another thing I was going to ask too, is I admire the culture you guys have there, and I wonder like what's it like maintaining it, because there are a lot of, like you said, transient bodies coming through. Like, do you kind of give them a talk when they come in at first sight, or like how does that work? Because it seems like I remember like, for example, Themba came and just kind of slid right in, and it just seemed like it was, like I was nervous from like, you know, me and Themba are super close, you know, a concerned big brother to him. Like, he's like, oh, bro, everything great. This guy welcomed me in, and this guy was like, oh, okay, great. It's all like, you know, it's all,
I think when you understand that this is a customer industry, customer service based industry, myself and the other coaches, but that trickles down to the rest of the fighters as well. Now, if there's a direct, like, oh, I don't want this guy here, somebody can speak up and say that. But for the most part, like, especially like Ige, like so-and-so is going to be in town. Are you cool? Oh yeah, no problem. Like, you know, you run those checks and balances, but for the most part, everyone's always welcome. And then like when a guy comes in for Timba, for example, I remember he had hit me up and asked. I said, hey man, let me give you a month. Take a month. Don't pay for anything. Just come in and check out the gym, check out the culture, see if you like everything. If you do, great. You know, I'm friends with John Wood. Hey, go see John. Go check out his place. See where you fit in the best, training wise, coaching wise, ideologies, whatever, timing of the practices, all those things. And then if we fit what you want, then great. Hire us. Come in. Come train. You want to bring your coaches in from South Africa? Bring them in. I don't really care. Have fun. You know, we'll make it work. So that's always been my mentality when it comes to those guys. Yeah,
and I think that's another thing too. I didn't bring it with the coaches as well, because you guys do that as well. I see other coaches come in and kind of step in, and that's cool. I mean, you're working with a lot of different minds. So I'm sure you're picking it up, and it seems like you work well in the corner with a lot of different people.
Yeah,
from a lot of
you have
walks.
to. Like Battle, for example. Like Battle wants to cross train a lot more, and I was like, bro, you've made it to this point in your career with these guys. Don't like bring them by. Like I don't even care if any of us are in your corner. Right? Pay your gym dues, be a good teammate. And if you use these guys as coaches, that's up to you. I really don't have any problem with that whatsoever.
I think that's so smart. Yeah. It's really cool. Because I don't think that really occurs anywhere else.
Yeah. But we can't, I mean, like, dude, we don't have the time to corner every single person.
Yeah.
Right? But it's also one of those situations where I know how I would feel if I brought a guy up through and now he's in the UFC, now he's making some good money, and all of a sudden, deuces, I'm out, I'm going to one of these big super gyms. You're like, God damn it. You know, so I welcome that. I think guys should be able to continue to coach these guys, and hell, maybe we can help them win some more fights, you know?
Yeah. You bring up a good point too, because sometimes when that happens in our business, I feel bad. Like, man, that team was doing really well. Like there wasn't really, it's just the fighters seeking, you know, different looks, or, you know, just want to maybe continue to seek different things. And sometimes it ends up kind of being a rough part of the business.
Yep.
So when you were going to this, so it was like 2009, then you go into gym manager and coaching. Like, at what point do you think it really took off for you? Like, at what point do you think you get to corner Campman? I know that's a big deal, because Campman in his heyday like was one of my favorite fighters. I love watching him. At what point does it kind of like, when's the tipping point? When is it like, okay, this is really actually
probably like, you know, I started to get more and more busy. 2016, 2017. And then I think when I started to really feel comfortable and confident was probably 2018 PFL, like Lance Palmer won. I got Vinny into the finals, you know, and then there was just like, I don't know. I just feel like I started to understand it more. And then when COVID hit, I think COVID for me was a blessing in disguise, because I was always working at the bar still at night, like Wednesdays and Thursday nights. It allowed me just to focus mainly on the fight game. I would go to the gym every day with Francis during the lockdown. Yeah. We would have a select few of guys, and we would come in and train. And then Randy would come in, and then we would just sit there for 8 hours, dude, and just work. And those, I think, like I look at like milestones, right?
Yeah.
And then that was the year when it was like, okay, we can be busy. We can get to work. There's going to be a lot of fights. And all these guys were in, like every single one we were in, you know, and then that's where I felt like my career started to take off more, because my sole focus was on the gym and on the team and on the guys that were competing during that time.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I always try to get where I thought you kind of started getting your due, and then where you kind of feel like, because I was going to say, I felt like in 2020 is when I felt like people were really like, giving you your flowers.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
And I know this too. I know you've been working. I remember you at Bama, right?
Yeah,
so I know that you've been,
we're grinding.
You've been paying your dues.
Yeah,
so it wasn't over.
both.
But I felt like in that year, it was finally coming in like, man, this guy's got one of the best minds in the sport right now.
Thank you.
He's really, I feel like you were just getting publicly, you were maybe getting your due finally, you know?
And that was cool because that was the year that MMA Junkie nominated myself and Tyson Chartier as MMA coaches of the year. But, you know, really for me, it was like, you know, like even like Krause, like he believed in me so much with Molina and Breeden and like, you know, being able to be with those guys more and more.
And to be honest, that situation I was involved in and seeing how much Krause trusted you was a huge tell to me in that moment. Him doing that was like, wow, like he got a lot of, cause he's very like,
oh, big time.
And so when he was like, dude, call Nicksick, call him now, get this all sorted. And for those that don't know, James tested positive for COVID the week that two of his fighters were on Contenders. And James had asked me to contact Eric, and Eric actually stepped in and coached both guys for us on, gosh.
We found out that Saturday or Sunday, because we all came to the gym that Sunday, and I met with Molina.
I think we had like one shakeout, went to go cut weight, made weight Monday. I think you were cornering us Tuesday.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and then like to this day, like Breeden's fight, although we didn't win, was one of my favorite fights of all time. Because here's a guy I really don't know. But like I was inspired by this kid watching this dude fight. Like, you know, his leg was chewed up. And I was like, I don't give a fuck. You're going to Southpaw and we're winging and we're going to knock this dude's fucking head off. And that was like, I felt bad because we ended up taking the contract away from Anthony. Dana's like, this guy couldn't get this guy out off of one leg. And I was like, dude, Mikey went out there and threw like his life depended on it. So that was a cool moment. And then dude, Molina was just a sniper.
That was a freaking such a good fight.
Yeah, such a good fight. You know, and I'm a Ludwig guy, so a lot of their like Molina's style was like a Dwayne like Overeem switch step to this. So right away, I think me and Molina clicked pretty quick because I knew what he was trying to get at. And then, you know, of course, James is being detailed the way that he is, like gave me all of like the game plan and like what this guy's strong suit is, what this guy might lack in, and you know, James is always spot on when it came to that stuff.
I always. Just through all the years of sports, I always feel like a good coach like talks to everyone differently or handles everyone different, right? Like maybe how you handle Ige is not how you handle Francis and stuff.
For sure.
But I remember I was so impressed because you didn't know these guys, and I was impressed with like backstage how you were warming them up and getting them all ready. Like I could tell like you were really being attentive to where kind of sense what their energy's at. You know what I mean? Like, are you know, you're going to do long workout? You're one of those guys that just wants to do a couple 1-2s and walk out there. Or, you know, like I was really impressed. I remember texting James like, hey man, Nicksick's got the boys ready.
Oh, nice.
You know,
well, I was fucking nervous, man. Cause like, you know, that was a big responsibility. And I think the world of James. So I was just like, fuck, I don't want to fucking drop an egg or something like that. When we're here to help these guys, you know,
you bail this out. I mean, you know this, you've had a ton of guys get to the UFC. Like that's a big moment being on Contenders. It's like their life's work is coming to fruition in front of Dana and Hunter and Sean and Mick, and so your coach goes down with COVID, and like you just step in, and you know the fight with Jeff Molina and Jacob Silva was just so gnarly, right? I mean, they were just chucking the whole time. I was like, oh god,
they were. I remember going to like into round 3, and Molina's like, "Am I up?" I'm like, I don't fucking know, but this fight's amazing, bro. Just keep doing what you're doing, you know. And then when the fight was over, I knew he won. He's like, I won that, right? And I was like, I don't fucking know, dude, but that fight was amazing. He's like, no, don't do me like that. I was like, you won, dude. You definitely won.
I think Dana must say that was a fight though. Like, I mean, because they brought Jacob Silva back. Man. I mean, that was a fight. If you would have gave both guys a contract, like no one would have cared.
Yeah. And that kid was tough too, Jacob. I actually talked to him quite a bit. He's out in Houston, right?
Yep.
Yeah, good kid.
So, and again, so guys, furthering on that, like, did you pick that up a lot from watching your dad coach a lot of guys in football, or is it something you've kind of learned just being in the gym? Is kind of how to, I mean, there's a lot of different personalities in Xtreme.
Sure.
I love them all, but they're all very different. And I feel like you've handled, I mean, Francis is very different than Strickland, and Strickland's landed Ige. Like, is that something you just constantly have to be aware of?
Playing quarterback. When I was a quarterback, I learned that.
And I feel like, also, what I've been impressed with is that you also do that in the same locker room. And I think we talk about this a lot in our sport, like dealing with different personalities. But can you imagine like one guy's a third fight, one guy's a seventh fight? And I've seen you do that multiple times. And I think that's the thing the UFC should cover is like what's it like when a coach has multiple guys on a card with multiple different game plans, and each, you know this, every guy's so different getting ready back there to get to where they need to go.
No, that's a great point, man, because you can ride in too high on too high of an emotion, right, off of a good win.
Yeah.
Or you can come in and be real low if a guy lost, and if he lost in a bad way or something. And, you know, so that neutral ground is always something I've always tried to find myself in, even if, you know, wherever you're at, because the fall falls, right? You're like, oh man. But in between the back of the house and you're running like, okay, Puna won his fight. Now I got Chris Curtis. So I can come in too high and take that energy, and it's just not what Chris needs in that moment. So really just trying to reset it in a lot of ways. But, for me, playing quarterback helped me a ton in my youth. I remember one time like really going off on a receiver that was kept dropping a ball. And my dad pulling me over to the side, and he's like, "Hey, everyone here is a different key to a door." Right? And he goes, "This kid, you can't yell at this way because he's just going to continue to crumble. He's a kid that you got to kind of coddle, pull him aside and say, 'Hey man, I believe in you. I trust in you, blah, 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 blah.' Now this guy over here, you can grab by his face mask and call him a piece of shit and get on him, and he's going to respond differently in a different way." So I'll never forget that analogy. My dad would always say, like, you have to be a ball of janitor keys, because everybody's going to need a different door to open, a different key to open their door.
Man,
right?
I'm going to steal that. That's a great way of putting it.
No, 100%.
And I remember this one time, I forget who it was, it's bothering me, but you had just lost a fight, and I think it was against one of our clients, because then I saw you in the medical area, and then I just watched you like,
gotta go.
And then you like went over, and I'm like, man, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Like because you have to because that person about to make the walk, they need your best in that very moment too, right?
Yeah,
and even though you're thinking like, man, should I have done this? Or, we're all second guessing after a win or a loss.
Yep.
And so I just think it's so impressive. I don't think coaches get enough credit in our sport, because it's not like, say you're coaching a basketball game, the game's kind of going, it's fluid the whole way through, right? There's no loss at any point, where here you could have,
another game and re-go.
What's the most you had on one card?
I've had 4. I've done 4 one time.
That's crazy.
I've done 3 back to back once. It was like, I think it was Brad, Ige, Strickland or something like that, or Puna. I think Brad. Yeah, I think it was Brad, Ige, Strickland or something like that, and it was all 3 in a row. So, but then again, it's like you just delegate as much responsibility. You make sure you have all the guys that you need. It takes a village anyway.
Yeah.
All right, I wrap Ige's hands. I don't wrap any of the other guys' hands. Okay, I got Ige squared away. Yeah. GIF is here. I got GIF to lean on. I got this guy to lean on, and then that's that. And then you just trust your team and delegate the way you see fit. And then, everybody goes out and does their job.
Yeah, I think I wish that was something the public would see more.
Yeah, it's cool. That'd be cool, right?
When they're kind of doing the whole. And you had 3 in a row. That's crazy, because the only time I've ever seen it in regards to me, I think it was in New York. It was like Lupe Godinez, Alessandro Costa, and then Diego came to fight Sabatini, and Pancho went like boom, boom, boom. And I remember thinking like, man, that is a...
And you're on that adrenaline.
Yeah, I think Lupe had won. Alessandro lost like a nail biter to Ursig, and then Diego came out and won. But it was like, you're just doing this. Mm-hmm. And I remember like one point it was just me backstage with Diego. I'm like, do you want to pummel?
How do you want to handle this? Then you feel so bad for the one person that lost, right? Like you want to, like, you're so happy, like you're celebrating that win, right, for the rest of the team. But then you're like, oh, the one guy, that one girl that lost. You're like, oh man. I remember that when Lance won the million, right? Like he was like the second or third fight of the night. We fought Siler. And then it was like Vinny, main event, I think, and he lost to Sean O'Connell, a guy he was supposed to beat. And it was for $1 million, of course, And not only that, like I ended up stopping the fight because Vinny's neck was all fucked up.
Yeah.
So you're like, yay, we won $1 million. And then my other best friend over here, I just had to call the fight,
And I feel like another thing I think I wish the public could see, because we both go through it, where like you could go 3-1 on the night, 4-1 the night, and the one guy that lost, you're just going to be
heartbroken for.
I had a friend from school come, he's like, bro, you won 4 out of 5 tonight. You should be happy. And you're like, yeah, but that one guy that lost, I know what he went through to get here. I knew what that fight meant. Like it's just hard. Like it just can stain the whole night, and you just feel for them,
Yeah, but guys like me and you, like we'll go 4-0 and we'll still find something to oh well, it wasn't that clean.
Should have got the bonus.
No one got a bonus. Oh fuck.
No, but I really admire how you handle that ship, because it's a big one that you have over there, and the personalities, and just like you said, the fight nights. It's a lot for a team, and I just feel like you guys have done a real.
We have such great coaches. I mean, we really do, man. Like top to bottom. Dennis, Maki. Now we're seeing coaching more.
Dude, it's really cool to see him in this coaching role.
Yeah.
I mean, me and Maki are friends. I don't really know him too well, but I think one of the biggest problems in our sport is guys, and I know this from football, it's
transition.
Their transition and their identity post grad. I'm not saying Maki's, he may still have juice in the in the tank. I don't know, but it's just really cool to see him come into his own. Like I watch him in the gym, and I watch him like Coach Shimon and some of these guys, and I think he's doing a fantastic job. And I probably should go over and tell him that. Like, but I remember telling Lances when he was at Fury the other day, I was like, dude, that's so cool. Like he is really like, I see the level of detail and care that he was given into. Like it was like, wow, like he's really like all in on
it's
this.
Amazing, man. And a lot of these guys too, like you said, like Maki still wants to fight. He still has gas in the tank, but it's only going to make his fight game better.
Yeah.
Right. When you're coaching and you put yourself in that role and you put the thinking hat on and you're looking at game planning, right? And then you start to look at your own work and what you're doing yourself, especially if you're going to stay in this fight game. But I always looked at that with like Krause, for example. Like he was coaching at a very high level.
Extremely.
And fighting at a very high level himself, right? Yeah. So he was really the one that I noticed the most that was, at the time, balancing it at the highest of level.
And it used to be kind of I don't want to say an argument, but we used to kind of get into it because my fear for Krause was that I wanted him to be at peace with his career.
Sure. And
I was just hoping that maybe it wouldn't end up being shoulda, woulda, coulda, because he was being so selfless for everyone else in the gym, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's a good argument. We're fighting, but I was hey, James, like I love you, man. I just want to make sure that you get all the rodeos out of your system,
right,
before you fully go into it. Because it got to a point where you remember his gym was signing quite a few guys to the UFC,
killing it.
And I remember like Sean kind of pulled me aside. He's like, "Hey, man, like I need to know like what we're doing with Krause here because we're booking his guys, and obviously he can't fight on those days. Like it's not really leaving a whole lot of options for James, But he was having such success in the coaching role."
Yeah.
You just want to make sure that you've exhausted yourself in one before you open the next.
But I mean, that's the point of having people like yourself and the friendships that people can speak to one another that way. And all you're trying to do is get the best out of him in that moment. Yeah. Hey, bro, the motherfucker might fight on a day's notice, he was the original Danny Ige out in Houston. Remember? That shit was crazy.
It was so funny because when Krause did it, I remember telling my wife, I was like, that might be the most gangster thing that I don't know if you could top that.
Yeah.
And I said this, not knowing a couple years later it was going to be against me. Ige was like, "Oh, what'd you say, Jason?
Yeah.
Hold my beer."
Well,
one day, how about a couple hours?
I blame Krause because we were on that card fighting Mirsad Bektik, and Krause was like, "I'm fighting this guy tomorrow. I'm weighing in my jeans."
Yeah,
went out there and fought. Was it Trevin Giles? Wasn't it? Yeah, that was fucking nuts.
Yeah, what Ige did that night was unbelievable.
Yeah,
I was like, man,
that was cool.
Super cool.
But I mean, it took two to tango, but that was a life-changing moment for a lot of us.
Yeah.
A lot of us, and obviously financially as well, but it put both guys in a great position and, helped us all a ton.
I mean, Dan said it changed his life, and I know it changed Diego's. I mean, that fight really 100%. Put us in a different, bracket of life that it really... you spend years in this business. I mean, Dan's been a staple. Diego's getting his run now, and you just want to make sure these guys get their due. And that was cool to see.
Myself included. Dan came and cut me a check like just as if we had an 8-week camp. You know what I mean? And it changed all of our lives and it took care of everybody. And that's just what I love so much about Dan is it put us all in a great position. Without that opportunity and you guys and Diego saying yes and fucking being game and going out there and doing his thing, it's one of those moments I tell Dan. I actually remember walking out. I was like, bro, this is what we get to tell our grandkids about. Like this is the story, bro. This is so much fun.
It was wild. I remember like I was in the house with Diego. And I was like, bro, I don't know, man. Like he gets tough. All I kept thinking was, Korean Zombie told me that the hardest hitter he ever fought was Danny Ige. Right. So like that was just haunted in my head because for the zombie to say this, know. And Diego just looked at me and he goes, "Brother, we're already in hell. We might as well hug the devil." And I was just like,
I love it.
Okay, we're gonna do this. But it was funny because you say it's because usually he'd pay me cash and it's a joke between us. Like that was the first time I was like, "Bro, you're probably gonna have to watch." Like you're not gonna be, But it's cool to see a guy like Dan because I mean Dan's fought the who's who. I mean, he's been to fight at that level for that long is just so impressive in our sport.
Yeah, and Ben, just a guy that like I love that we're handcuffed together. You know what I mean? Like
I love your guys' relationship.
Man, he's one of my best friends. Just the checks and balances that I need and. We started doing this thing together back when we were, he was on the regional scene and I was kind of a regional scene coach, had a handful of UFC guys, but, just seeing his rise, not only as a fighter, I mean, the husband and the dad and all those things to me are more valuable as a coach when I can look back and just like, oh, dude, like that's my guy, you know, and you're going to forget about the wins and losses and all that stuff, but you look at the human being that he's become, and that's what I definitely care about the most, man.
No, it's cool because, I mean, he was one of the first generation guys from Contender Series.
Yeah.
And
season 1.
Yep. And to see, I remember we fought him regionally in San Diego for CFFC.
That's right.
Padilla.
Yeah.
That was a great fight.
Yeah.
And so I've known him for a long time and always respected him. And as a manager, I get very excited to see guys doing good outside the cage. I think all this is in vain if they're not good.
People.
And that's really like, it makes me happy. Like, I know I see him with his wife and his kid and it's like, man, that's freaking, like, that's the juice right there.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it's supposed to be about, you know?
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to ask is, like, I feel like I wanted to be the agency to be like John Wooden or Dan Gable or Cale Sanderson's doing, what David Taylor's about to do, and like run decades of, and I feel like you've been putting together quite a few consistently like really good years at Xtreme. Like, what are like the goals every year, or how does that, consistency staying in place for you? Like, how are you moving the marker? I just kind of want to pick your brain on just how you're keeping up in this, just the level of performance that you're doing over there,
Man, consistency is huge for me.
Yeah.
It's huge for me, and it's like, I haven't won the big, what is the one, the fighters only, but I've been nominated 4 years in a row. Like that's important to me.
That's okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like those things are important to me, not only for myself, but for the gym. I want the gym to be nominated. I want to keep doing what we're doing at a high level. Right.
Yep.
And again, I think a lot of that does come from accountability. It does. Like, man, there's times where I look at myself and I'm like, oh, I'm slacking here. I'm not doing the right thing with this, and this.
Yeah.
And you get refocused, and goals should be ever changing. They should always be. And maybe I didn't hit that goal for that year per se, but it doesn't mean it was a failure. Maybe I reached close to that. In 2020, I wrote down I wanted to win a world title every year. Every year I wanted to win a world title. I didn't win one in 2020, but I've won one in 2021 all the way through.
I was about to say, because I was going to say you've won.
Yeah,
and
9.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's motivating to me to see you, because I'm like, man, this guy's been on quite a few title runs, and that's very hard to do. I mean, that is extremely hard to do in our sport, and you've had a good run with it, and it's just awesome to see, because I think anyone can do things good for once. You know what I mean? It's when you can put 9, 10, 11, 12 years together, you're like, damn, like they ran a decade. Like, Iowa wrestling, they were in the 80s. They ran a decade, right? Like they're Alabama, earlier in the 2000s, like they just ran it, Yeah. And I just wonder how that is for you and constantly improving. But I forgot about the fighters only, so I could see how that's a big deal to.
Yeah, it's just a level of consistency and the quality of your work, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're just trying to put good product out there all the time, and it doesn't matter unless these men and women are winning their fights. It doesn't matter, right? Like, it's like a lot of times we're like field goal kickers. You're only as good as your last kick, right? I might have made my last 10, but Strickland loses one and you're the worst coach in the world. But on the flip side of that, we've also benefited from a lot of those. Like, Sean beat Izzy. Now you're the best coach in the world, but a lot of that is Sean. Like, Sean is the reason why, he wins those fights. We game plan and we do certain things, but that's kind of the ebb and flow of the coaching game. Is you're going to take it on the chin sometimes, and sometimes you get more credit than you actually deserve. But for me, it's about the consistency, and these guys are winning the fights and doing the right things. But there's also showing the evolution in their game, right? Are you showing the same product every time? Are you helping these guys grow? Have you changed their their approach to the game or their style? Those are things that I get most proud about, especially with like a guy like Francis. Is like, the development that we can do with a guy like Francis. He doesn't have to knock everybody out now. Okay, now we can give these proper tools to know, like, anywhere this fight goes, we can win this fight. Those things are important to me.
And the things you've done to Francis, I mean, have been obviously groundbreaking.
That's him.
It's huge,
that's all him. He listened, like he wanted to develop, right? And it was the gym. It wasn't just me. It was the team. It was the gym. It's like, okay, we're going to put you in these scenarios, in these situations. You have to show up for them, right? You want to be the best in the world. Okay, well, let's get to the wrestling side of things. And a lot of times people think that all we did was work on defensive wrestling. We wanted to make it fun for them. So no, we worked on offensive wrestling, and inherently, when you work on offense,
you're working on defense.
You're working on defense. But we wanted to make it fun. We didn't want to have to show up every day. I'm like, all right, you're going to defend 100 shots.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna take a dude down 100 times. So if I can put the car engine together, I can take the car engine apart.
In the same way.
Same way.
So smart.
Exactly. So now then it turned into like a new toy for him. So it's like, oh, dude, I can take this guy down, just pound his head in. Like, oh yeah, bro, great.
I think one thing that I've noticed when I go there that I really respect, and it's because it was hammered upon me. Like I remember, like my freshman year in baseball, like a coach told a relief pitcher, like, "Bro, you need to punch someone at practice when they're slacking off. Like,
Right.
I need to see more out of you. You need to hold these guys accountable."
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we have that extreme, but
Sure.
one thing, like I remember, like Strickland and Plosing, these guys, they do a really good job of like holding each other, the team accountable. Like I feel like you guys have built a culture where like. I don't see you having to really get on guys because they're getting on each other. I think that's when you really have success.
The culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've always been impressed. I remember being with Lance one time, like, man, like they really like self-regulate here. Like, I love that. Like that's great because that's how I was raised in my college program. It was like, dude, I don't need to be yelling at you guys. You should have been telling him that he was, you know what I mean? Like I remember like our starting catcher wasn't playing good and the coach blamed the backup catcher. It's your fault. You're not pushing him. If you'd have been pushing him every day in practice and making him earn a spot, he'd be playing better today. So you know what? It's your fault. You should apologize to the starter that this is why he sucks today. I remember like being 18, you're just like, what?
Wait a minute. Yeah.
But it started like, you know, and it's kind of made me into who I am today.
But what does that do to your defense mechanism when that is the approach? Then everybody goes on their own defensive and they want to defend their ego or defend themselves and be right.
Yeah.
Right. So when we started taking more accountability as a staff, or like if something went wrong, maybe it was my fault, maybe it wasn't my fault. But if I said, hey, look, guys, this one's on me. I failed you guys as a coach. Here's where I could have been better. Then more guys are apt to say, hey, no, coach, that was on me too. I didn't put my best effort in, or I didn't do this. And a lot of that started with Robert. Like when Follis came to Xtreme, he sat the guys that were still there. Like it was like Evan Dunham, myself, Brad, Martin, like a handful of us, right? And what he asked was a simple question: was what is the standard here? What is the standard going to be?
It.
And this wasn't him telling us what the standard's going to be. He asked a question and allowed the team to answer that question. And the question was, do you guys want to be world champions, or do you guys want to be okay? Do you want to be journeyman fighters? Tell me what I'm getting myself into. And if we want to set a standard, we're going to set a standard as a team, not my standard, not Eric's standard, the gym standard, right? And I'll never forget that conversation because, of course, everybody in the room said they want to be world champions. And that was what we were striving for. Then he started talking about the TNT, the take no talent stuff, the takes no talent. What things can we do in our lives that it doesn't matter if you're a good fighter or a bad fighter, but if you can show up on time, takes no talent. You can have all the right gear. You can be prepared and do all these things. All those boxes should be checked prior to you even showing up to the gym, right? And then the list of things like that goes down. The first time I ever talked to Raul Rosas was about, hey, you're 5 minutes late. 5 minutes late every day in an 8-week camp. That means you missed out on this many reps, right? So let's say you just left out 10,000 reps in an 8-week camp because you were 5 minutes late. And I remember Raul going, oh shit. And this is like when he was 17 years old, right? I was like, I don't want you to be 5 minutes late every day because I want you to get the benefit of being in all these reps. What chain reaction does it have when I forget my tape? Okay, well now this Velcro might cut a guy's neck and the neck turns into staph. And then now I lose a training partner. So now you just told your team that you don't give a fuck about the teammate or the rest of the guy on the mats because you don't have the proper gear. I don't wear knee pads because, I'm not going to throw knees, but a guy like Natan throws a kick and breaks his foot, right? Like all those things that have a lasting effect on the standard. So when Follis passed away, I remember all of us being upset and just sitting there. And the one thing I remember looking at the team, I said, listen, if we want to keep Follis's memory alive, we keep the standard alive. What he set for us, it was not Robert's, it was for us as a team. And that's the way we can keep his memory alive, is keep that standard that he has.
I love that. I just had Jarrett Bond from First Form on here, and he said, rules are meant to be broken, standards are meant to be upheld.
There you go.
You just said it right now. I was like, man, it's been like the theme of the month.
There you go.
But I think that's so true. Like if you put it on them, then it's kind of like.
But it also, it shouldn't be your job to always have to police the room, right?
Yeah.
So then you lean on guys like Brad Tavares and Sean and Chris Curtis and
that's what I love seeing. Is that it's like everyone is trying to hold each other accountable, but it's love, right? I mean, that's love. Like, if someone does that for me, they love me. They love me enough that they are saying, Jay, come on, man, you're better than this.
Right? The saying, I love you too much to leave you the way that you are.
Yes. And for example, Battle was here at the office last night. He was telling me that talking about overtraining and being rather than to do say, I don't know, 15 really good practices a week as opposed to say 20 that are subpar, right? And I guess he was saying that he was rolling with Strickland, and Strickland, what do you call him? Dead meat? Yeah, he had a term.
Yeah.
I was like, man, you're dead meat.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, bro, you don't have anything here. I can feel it. Like,
Yeah.
You're flat. And then when he went to go roll Pelosi, I guess Sean told him, hey, Pelosi, Battle's dead meat.
Yeah.
Like he's
smash him.
But it was a lesson to Battle. Like, hey, man, it's better you come here twice a day.
Quality reps.
Quality reps. Than go, 3 times and then have it be crappy. Like, this is a question I wanted to ask you. I'm glad we got to this. Like, I always wonder this, like, guys spar like so many rounds sometimes, but like their hands are down by their dicks because they're so tired. Like, but also I know there is a point to the conditioning. It's like, how do you balance that? Like, is it better to do like, I don't know, 4 or 5 really good rounds, or I don't know. I wonder your opinion on that, how, as a coach, like when you're doing those things.
I'm with you, bro. Like, so for example, let's say like you got a guy in camp, like Myron's in camp.
Yeah.
Myron fights next week. Myron should only be sparring 3 hard 5-minute rounds, because what happens is if you guys get into the 5s, then they're not sparring as hard because they're thinking about rounds 4 and 5, right? Then what I want is, hopefully, best case scenario, is I want the same sparring partner for all 3. Because now it gives us time to make adjustments in between the rounds. If we're working round 1,
you're simulating the fight. You're 100%. Simulating,
especially when we're like this close out, right? A fresh body every time doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially if we're looking for a certain thing. So, like, let's just say, for example, the whole first round, Myron's looking for the body shot, and he's setting something up for round 2. So now we worked all this investment all in round 1. Now we go into round 2. Now we can start changing that investment into
something. You bring a new guy in. Now it's like
it starts all over again. Now it doesn't only start all over again. Now you make these adjustments. Maybe the sparring partner was doing something really good.
Yeah.
So now the rep that I get as a coach in between that round, I make an adjustment. It doesn't matter anymore because it's a new guy, right? So the closer we get into fights, I always ask guys at least 2 rounds in a row with the same partner,
so you can continue your progress and your work and your reads.
Exactly. Our reads,
so
our calls, all of these things. So we have at least a round of an adjustment.
Yeah.
Where I can say, hey man, this is working really well, or you've been adding this in, or you've been investing in the teep. Now we can start going to the head kick, whatever it may be.
Cheeto was the first one. We went out to eat one day. I don't know how we got on this subject, but he was kind of telling me like, hey, like, I used to spar, I don't know, 8 to 10 rounds. You know how it is. You're maybe a couple in the cage and a couple out on the mats and stuff. And he was like, dude, I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
If I'm main event, I'm doing 5.
Hard.
Like legit, all my focused, all my technique, all my everything tight and perfect, you know what I mean, to the best of my ability. And it got me thinking like, man, I can see. Now you're taking it one step further in my thought process by saying same partner.
Same partner, if you can, if it's available for you, right? Like
obviously sometimes you can't, but no, but you're making a lot of good points too. And then it's,
just think about reps.
Yeah, because
you're just getting quality reps.
Because if I came back to the corner and you're like, hey, Jay, he's doubling up here, or he's doing this. But if you bring a new guy in, it doesn't matter what.
Doesn't matter.
But if you say, hey, try this when he does this, then it allows me to make on-site, on-field adjustments where I call audibles in those moments and make those things. And I'm like, okay, now I'm learning. And then you and I are building a better rapport. So when it comes to the fight, and you've told me this, I have faith. He told me this once in sparring, I did it, it worked. Like
now you're getting comparable reps. Not only as the fighter, but coach and fighter, building that rapport in the corner, how you speak to your fighter, reading your fighter's body language. Is he depressed? Is he happy? Is he sad? Whatever it may be. Those reps are invaluable, and you have to take that time and that opportunity to grow. And that when you get the time to do it is in sparring. When you get the time to make those adjustments, it's in sparring. So just like you said, all right, now we have Arosa sparred Ige twice, back-to-back rounds. I was able to corner both guys, give Arosa 30 seconds, and then Ige, and then Eddie vice versa, right? So now we're making these adjustments in chess match, and now they go round 2, boom. Now these guys are going back at it with those adjustments in mind.
See, I'm glad I asked. Now I learned even more about this, because
100%.
I'm always just trying to learn. And now you're making me think more, like if he's frustrated with that opponent and you switch it out, maybe it eases him up off the frustration that maybe he should have kept. Like, hey man, get dialed in. Like you're too frustrated with him. He's leading the dance a little too much, or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
And you're getting him back centered, and it gives you practice on getting a guy maybe to take it down
How
a notch.
does he respond? Did he listen to anything that you said?
Yeah.
Right? How did he respond to what you said? Is he making eye contact with you? Is he walking around? Like, Sean doesn't really, we seen Sean in the corner. He just kind of does his thing. Do you take it personally? No, that's just what he does and how he does it. Other guys want to sit down. Other guys want to stand up. So just learning, though, like you said earlier, learning the essence of the fighter, knowing how to connect with them, knowing the right things to say in those moments, all in practice, all in the reps.
Coach Crouch told a great story last week. He said he was cornering Mitch Clark in the UFC, and I guess Alaquinta was having his way in the first round. And they went to sit down, and they gave him the water, and he's like, man, we got him right where we want him.
I love it.
And I guess Mitch was like, what?
But
it kind of like, you know what I mean? It kind of like broke the tension a little, you know what I mean? And I guess Mitch ended up catching him in a choke and ended up winning the fight.
So sick.
But it's like one of those things, like sometimes like you said, he's been around him enough to know, like, hey man, like this is going to be fine.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes too, like I'll crack a joke, or like, I remember one time, I think we were in London and Chris was fighting Hermanson. I was like, I wonder if Harry Styles is here. And Chris is like, yeah. Like looks around like right in the middle of the fight. Like just to, how Chris will get. Like sometimes you just break him off that and then like kind of have a little chuckle and then we go about our way. But man, speaking of Crouch, man, like that is consistently one of the best coaches in the game.
Yeah.
Like, love the guy to death. He's been a friend of mine for years, but I think like he doesn't get enough of the flowers that I think that he's due. Like just the way that
I was just telling him that.
Yeah.
I said, Coach, I hope you don't think I'm just gassing you, but like,
dude,
I feel like
amazing.
you've been an undercover top tier coach for like, you've just been doing it every year in, year out. They're producing solid guys,
100%.
top 10 guys. Kinnear just looked great again. Came
amazing.
back. Coach
amazing.
Crouch is a one of one. I'm really,
and like, dude, just a guy like, and of course, like there's a lot of camaraderie that when it comes to these coaches, because I think the ones that really know what we go through on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis are other coaches.
Yeah.
So like, he's just been a huge resource for me. But a guy like calls me up, he was like, hey, what was your game plan with Brad versus Cannonier? Like he wants to know.
Yeah.
And like, I think it says a lot about the coach, right? Like he's willing to exhaust any option possible for his team to win,
greater good.
for the greater good of his guys, and just a solid human being all around. He's a dad. We talk about like our kids' lives and, the gym and how, what specials you run in, what kind of mats you do, like just a solid resource for me as a coach as well.
I really respect that about you and him. He called me the other day at his son's basketball game to light a fire in me to get this guy into the UFC short notice. And he did. He ended up fighting this in Seattle this past weekend. And,
McConaughey.
Yeah. And the passion, obviously I love McConaughey. I'm pushing to just to hear Coach, like, that's his dude.
Yeah.
That guy's 34. This is his chance, right? Like you could see it. And I always think back to that last chance the basketball season where he's like, dude, I missed my son's game
for this
to be here for you. And I always think about you guys because I know how much you post about your kids on social media and Crouch does too. And it's like what you guys give up for others.
Sure.
I hope. I feel a lot of guys have a lot of gratitude towards you, but I always hope I look at it differently. And like, man, these guys are really giving up a lot to help others achieve their dream or pursue their goals. It isn't enough to say like Mark Montoya missed how many of Brooklyn or Wyatt's competitions and golf tournaments and marathons and stuff to be here for us. And I just think it shouldn't go unnoticed that you guys are living life on the road on most weekends.
I've talked to my daughter, my oldest daughter, about that. McKenna would be like, hey, do you resent your dad for my, and she'd be like, hell no, like you got the best job in the world. And I love that what you do. And, I think it's about being present when you're there in time served, like put your phone down.
Yes.
Daddy-daughter dates, be present when you're there. Those things are very, very important to me, because I get it, man. This is the job that we chose. We have the best job in the world, hands down. Like I pinch myself every time we go on that walk. I'm like, dude, this is so cool, but it does come with sacrifice. The key to that is you surround yourself with fighters that also appreciate the time that you're giving to them and the time that's being taken away from your family, because that's the one resource in life we never get back. It's time. Yeah. So being around individuals that inspire you, that make you want to be the best that you can be, the best version of yourself, guys that don't just take your time for granted, and that, obviously like you're investing back in your family when you have that time too. Yeah. So it's important.
No, I love it. I love it about you both. And it's something I really respect. As someone that's been an athlete, now a manager, you're like, man, someone's given a lot of time for the greater good of our team right now to get this W. It's important. You know? So, Coach, I really appreciate you having you. I always finish off with the same 3 questions. what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
My 8-year-old self?
18-year-old.
18-year-old self. Oh, man. I'd tell that dude to slow down. There's a lot of things I'd tell that guy. Man, probably the most like up and down crazy time of my life, you know, was my 18-year-old self. And a lot of dumb shit I was doing back then. Saw a lot of bad things and did a lot of dumb stuff. And I'd probably tell him to slow down. That'd be the one thing I'd say is, hey man, you know, but, that guy is the reason why I'm the guy in the chair today, you know, so slow down, idiot.
Yes. Got any billboard, any quote on a billboard, what would you put?
Oof, that's a good one. Hate is the preferred emotion of the underachiever.
Wow. I like that one.
Yeah.
Let's steal that one.
Yeah.
One song rest of your life on your playlist.
Van Morrison, Into the Mystic.
Ooh, yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, awesome, Coach. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on today.
Oh, brother, my pleasure, man. Thanks
Guys,
for having me.
catch us on Spotify, our YouTube channel, Coach Eric Nicksick. Until next time. See you guys soon. Man, you really opened my eyes on the sparring. It's been I almost forgot. I'm so glad I remembered to ask you. I wanted to ask you on air, but like it's been a big debate of mine. I don't want to get too much.